It's good to have you on, Rakesh. It's
Pleasure's all mine. I know we've been trying to make this happen for a while.
Yeah, you know what? On most of my shows, my intro is always saying to the guest, "We've been trying to get together for a long, long time." I've now decided it has been my fault constantly because I can't blame every single guest for the same thing. But yeah, it's lovely to have you on, and your beautiful instruments behind you, and of course your piano. It's great to have you all on.
We're all glad to be here.
So Rakesh, for people watching and listening at home,
Yep.
For those that don't know what you do, how would you describe yourself? I've got you down on my phone as a Rakesh piano man. And
Yeah, I would say that's pretty much right. I think people often make that connection with. So my primary instruments, the piano. I grew up playing a lot of instruments, but I ended up finding a natural sort of magnetic force towards the piano itself.
Yeah, yeah. So this sort of force, as a young child, you just sort of gravitated towards the keys, and you thought,
So it's a bit more innate than that, actually. So my father is a classical singer.
Wow.
And so I always grew up in a musical household with music all around me. And in fact, my first instrument was the guitar. So I began to play the guitar initially, and I took all my training in Western classical guitar. And I didn't play the piano until a lot longer after I was studying music. I always played the harmonium, but it was never something I was where I thought, this is where I'm going to spend my time with the keys. As a child, I always wanted to be a guitarist.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like a rock and roll star. Was it rock and roll or a pop star?
Well, I'm not sure whether it was more rock and roll. I think it was more the fact that my brother used to play the guitar, and I just wanted to be better than him at something.
Yeah. That's how it kind of works. Sometimes you want to be better than your older sibling, right? Was he?
Sorry, yeah, he's older than me.
Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned there, in passing. Then you just said, "Look, my father was a classical singer."
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of not, for the people that I know, it's not a normal kind of parent to have. And so growing up in a household with classical music and instruments, slightly different upbringing, I would say, to me. So what was it like sort of growing up in that household and listening to that style of music?
It was, I guess, quite a deep and enriching experience, to the extent that, so my grandfather, he used to sing as well.
Wow.
So it's sort of it's been in the family. So it's something I would absorb but not be aware of consciously, because it would always be around me. So I never really understood what was happening. And when my father used to play tapes and cassettes, I actually find it quite difficult to digest because of the nature of the music.
Yeah.
It's not something that's immediately palatable to the ears right at the beginning. And it's only after I began to train under him, I guess the education of it helped me relate, so I could understand and appreciate it much better. And I guess once I started to appreciate it, it became a drug for me in the sense that I was addicted to the music.
Yeah.
Something I just couldn't get away from. And so I would say the nature and the style of Indian classical music has been, it's been very much an intrinsic part of me, rather than something that I've sort of grown with in that respect.
Yeah. I know what you mean, because you said, you literally grew up with music, not just listening to it, but obviously, instruments around your house, and they're right behind you, and they're everywhere.
Yeah, so these were my toys.
Yeah.
My toys as a child were instruments. So yeah, all I could do was make more noise.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up with scale electrics, so that's the difference between me and you. But I understand, classical music. It's kind of Indian classical music, at least. It's a difficult music to an untrained ear to sometimes understand what's happening and why they're singing in that way. So like you said, you found it quite difficult at the beginning to understand the intricacies of it.
Yeah, so it's a delicate art, but I feel like with any sort of music, the more exposure you have to it, the more you begin to understand the patterns and you make connections. And when you start to make connections, you actually know, okay, this is what happens between the repertoire. And it's the same when going to a Western classical concert or even experiencing any type of music. You really have to allow yourself to spend that time to immerse, to understand it. And the more you do go to it, the more you can relate, and the more you understand what's happening, the more you begin to appreciate. I definitely do agree. It is it's not the most instant thing you would put on, but it's turned to my go-to.
Yeah. So is it almost because there's a sense with classical music, there's a heavy influence on improvisation. Would you say?
Yeah, I would say 90% of
right.
It's an improvised art form, which makes it totally different to Western classical music. And that element can't be taught. So the compositions, the main crux of it is taught, but the improvisation element, it's something you have to grow as an artist with. Yeah. And it's the same with jazz music. In fact, it's something that you develop and it comes from you.
Yeah, I was going to say jazz music's very similar in that sense. And when I've listened to Indian classical music, if I've seen it online on YouTube, and it's for any instrument, sitar, tabla is singing, you could see the musician, they seem to almost be in a trance, and they're allowing the music to take them wherever. There seems to be some kind of spiritual connection. Is the way I always. Is that am I on the right track?
Yeah, absolutely. You really have to connect with the music. It's something that can't come from your mind. It has to come from your soul. And until you forget about the materials and ego and everything from life, I feel that's the only way you can really start to connect with the music and let it flow from you.
Yeah,
and that's ultimately what you have to make the music do. It has to flow from inside you.
Yeah. So do you find it almost a meditation when you play?
Oh, music is my meditation. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And you use it to relax and.
Not so much these days. I didn't get that much of a chance to play recreationally just because of the number of productions and work I'm involved in. But sometimes, it's definitely a great way to switch off.
Yeah. It's amazing how humans find a way to meditate. There's many ways of meditating.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, a lot of people listen to music. A lot of people sing or play instruments. Yeah. Some people even exercise. It's meditation for them. And but I think the aspect of improvisation, because we, as people, we live kind of structured lives, and to let yourself go on stage. For me, that'd be terrifying because I've been in bands, music bands, and we're structured, right? We know what songs we're doing. Yeah. We know when the stops are, when the breaks are, how many verses there are. And so there's a bit of improvisation in it, but nothing to the extent of Indian classical
30 minutes or an hour of not knowing what you're going. Yeah, there's been so many times I've gone onto stage and not had an idea what I'm going to play.
Wow.
For me, it's always understanding the energy of the audience first. And it's really it's such a great question you sort of posed there, because you don't worry about the time, and which is a very unusual aspect of going onto stage. Is nowadays you are sort of confined to finish the concert within hour and a half or 2 hours, but in the sense of the individual track itself, you're not confined to play it within 3 minutes or 4 minutes. You play it until you feel it's naturally progressed.
Yeah.
So you don't set boundaries, and when you don't set boundaries, that really allows you to go free.
Yeah. Are you yourself going on some kind of internal journey through your music? Do you feel there's like a start? You're traveling somewhere. There's a middle, and obviously we've got a slight time restriction, like you said, but it's like 2 hours, and I guess she's still going. So, someone needs to stop this man, right? But is it like a journey for you? It sounds amazing to me.
Yeah, absolutely. From the moment you walk on stage, the only thing that is roughly what scales, what we call the rag, is going to be performed. And after that, that's it. You decide from your repertoire which compositions you want to pick, and you let go right till the end. And the most fascinating part for me, because I play the style of Indian classical music on the piano itself, and that's never really been explored.
No.
So the scope it's ever expanding, because it's not something I can find a go-to record of. There aren't even a dozen musicians who probably in the world play Indian classical music on the piano. So it's something where there's a lot of innovation required.
Yeah.
And it's finding that journey, and you can only find it, for me, on stage through an audience, because you really receive that energy and that reception.
Yeah.
And that reception really does allows to bring the music out of yourself.
So you're vibing off the audience, plus this kind of spiritual vibe you're going through, relying on obviously your immense talent, and is there an element of fear slightly going through, or nervousness?
I think it's more excitement, actually.
Yeah.
It's more excitement, and very funnily enough, depending on whatever country I'm playing in, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to rehearse extensively with a musician before. You've never met them before. There's been many occasions where I've traveled and I've met the musician on the actual stage. It's time on the actual stage because the flight's been delayed, or so we haven't had that chance to rehearse. So I guess there's always a slight apprehension or nervousness, but the nature of the music is so that any two artists who have studied under that branch can naturally make that connection. So it's always more of an excitement because you don't know what's going to happen and where it's going to go, and that's the most incredible part of it.
Yeah. So that's I mean, that's quite literally you're speaking to each other purely through music.
Yeah.
There's a dialogue going on, isn't there? And
absolutely. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, and I think that's amazing. I mean, it's not obviously there's is there slight looks at each other, or when you're improvising, like you've got kind of done your
so we have sort of micro gestures. We'll raise the eyebrow or smile when we think it's going really well, or maybe frown if we think it could be improved. But it's all communicated through sort of micro gestures, and that's an inherent part of the actual training itself. Is to really understand those.
Yeah, you know what, I find this super interesting because I've seen the great Nazar Fateh Ali Khan on TV videos, and with his group, they would all improvise, right? And sometimes I would think, why has he started? He sort of interrupted the other guy, But but then I realised, they're building up this absolute vibe on stage and this atmosphere.
They're all feeding off each other.
And it's electric. I could feel it off the TV, and let alone actually being in the auditorium or in the theatre watching them. And I never understood it because I was young and I was thinking it kind of seems like they're stepping on each other's toes, but they're vibing off each other. And I think that's very fascinating that you've got this kind of musical language that you're speaking to each other. So are you taking each other on a journey? Are you sort of shown if you play with someone and you're going a certain way with improvisation, are you taking that person with you and then they take you another direction?
Yeah, so you're always constantly assessing where it's going, and sometimes you have an intention of starting and maybe ending up somewhere, and it goes in a whole new direction, whole new tangent, and that's the most exciting bit, because it's okay. It's actually okay to do that, because it's where the music is naturally gravitating. So instead of forcing the music to go somewhere, to say actually at this point this should be played, in fact you're naturally gravitating towards the energy of the music and where it's naturally transitioning. So it's going with the wind as such.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's given me a massive appreciation for it. So when I will watch it again or listen to it, I'll have a bit more of an understanding on what's happening. And I think that's the beauty of it. And I think people watching and listening to this, they'll understand it a lot more. Do you find that yourself, you're kind of explaining to people the kind of fundamentals of classical music?
Yeah, because it still is a niche area. And it's not something, I've had the very privilege of growing up with it in my house. So I had no choice but to appreciate it. But I think, it's something where at the start of a concert, I always have to explain what's happening, the nature of the music, what the format and structure is. And that's, and I'm very happy to, I'm still very happy to do it, but the music is at a stage where not everybody's being exposed to it, and they are coming to experience it maybe for the first times in their life. Especially seeing it played on the piano. I'm not sure how many people have seen that before, so that's always a first for everybody. And I get that comment quite a lot, saying this is the first time I've ever heard Indian classical music, or Indian classical music on the piano, or the piano and the tabla, side by side with each other. I think that picture on its own has always startled people, and it's been a staggering image where it feels like an oxymoron in some sense, but until they're actually mold really well together.
I mean, do you, within the Indian classical community, when you first came along with your piano, was there kind of some pushback from any of them saying, it's not really a classical instrument for Indian music? Or
absolutely, yeah. That was one of the biggest challenges I've faced in the music itself, and there's two reasons for that. One is because the idea of Indian classical music itself, it's based on microtones, which are notes between the notes, and the piano is a fixed tuned instrument. So apart from the harmonium and the santoor, which have only recently sort of been accepted, I would say, in the world of Indian classical music, the instruments are there to emulate the style of a voice, and the voice bends between the notes. The secondary sort of reservation is the idea of harmony, which is the idea of playing multiple notes at once. So you look at, if you look at all the Indian classical instruments, whether it be the bansuri, the Indian flute, the sitar, violin, these instruments only allow you to play, 1, 2, or 3 notes maximum at the time, but in their most usual fashion, they only play 1 note. The piano gives me the opportunity to play 10 notes at once.
Right.
So that's where the innovation aspect. So I'm dealing with 2 things. I'm dealing with the idea of harmony and the idea of the piano being a fixed tune instrument. These are 2 novel concepts to the style of Indian classical music. So there would always be that reservation saying, okay, the style of music is meant to emulate the voice. The piano, in its truest respect, isn't designed to do that.
Yeah. So you're taking people on a musical journey that not many have traveled. This is a new journey that you're.
Yeah, it's a constant exploration. Still always learning something new when I'm at the piano itself. I'm
Yeah.
always finding something new.
So you wouldn't have many contemporaries either, really, to look up to, because, like you said, not many people play Indian classical music on a piano.
Yeah, I think there's maybe a handful around the world, and everybody has their own style. So there's no, go-to record as such to say, actually, this is the style of music I like or I want to play.
Yeah. So have you met many of the other piano players, Indian classical piano players? Do you see each other? Do you see each other in a room and give a micro gesture? Like...
So in fact, when I was in New York, I met Michael Harrison. He's a fantastic pianist, and he's done a lot of work exploring Indian classical music on the piano. Other than that, I think there's quite a few play on the keyboard, but yeah, most of my interaction has been with Indian classical musicians who play on, the sitar, the violin, bansuri, veena, etc.
Yeah. Did I give you a double glance when you roll in with your piano? And I think where's his harmonium? But I think it's fantastic that you're doing that, because music is push boundaries. I think all art should push some boundaries, and some of the greatest artists have broken a lot of rules. Even in the art world, Jackson Pollock, when he did the drips, it was breaking every rule. Cubism.
I don't think I'm breaking rules. I'm just trying to find the rules.
Yeah. So yes, maybe you're finding new rules. So for yourself, what do your family think? With the piano, obviously, was your father obviously a traditional Indian classical singer?
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, I sort of always hid it away from him that I was doing this experimentation. Solely when he wasn't there, I was trying to actually figure out what this would sound like on the piano. But until then, everything I was learning was on the harmonium or through voice itself.
Right. So can you sing as well, Rekesh? Can you sing?
Oh no, absolutely not. I'm a bathroom singer. But yeah, so I was just I guess I was found out. I was trying to explore this.
Yeah. It's a bit hard with a grand piano in the room. I'm sure he must have heard you. So is he fully kind of behind you now, and he understands?
Absolutely. Amazing support, and in fact, my first ever album was a album of Indian classical music on the piano itself, and that's something I always wanted to do.
That must have been a proud moment, not just for yourself but your family as well. Having a physical album or your music out there as a collection of work must have been a dream come true for you.
Yeah, well, for me, absolutely. It's something that I'm still exploring, and we recorded the album in a concert hall itself because I really wanted to capture the natural acoustics of a concert hall, just to get that feeling, and all those elements were really important.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, apart from your father, what other heroes did you have growing up listening to Indian classical music? Do you listen to other genres as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Birmingham, and I was, surrounded by all types of music. Anything from Herbie Hancock to Prince, right away to popular culture music, whether it be rhythm and blues, and that's found its way into the music that I'm doing and producing now, because a lot of it amalgamates, I would say, drum and bass, electronic styles, and it fuses that with Indian classical music itself. In terms of Indian classical influences, I've been extremely lucky that I spent my sort of childhood, teenagers, and until now having the opportunity to perform with every single one of those people
Wow.
I've looked up to. And for me, that's been an incredible journey, because I've been able to absorb what I'm learning on stage, sitting, just having the opportunity to sit with them, and then to translate it onto the piano after. So yeah, it's been an influx of inspiration and radiation, and it's not even, I would say the inspiration extends not only to artists but to everybody I meet and listeners alike too, because I find that everybody has something unique to offer, and you can always learn something from somebody, and that naturally makes you as a person. And like I alluded to at the beginning, the music truly does have to come from yourself. So the people around you make you, and that's what goes into my music.
I find that part really fascinating, that you've absorbed all this music, not just classical music, like you mentioned Prince and and all them and that, so all that music comes out in you because a lot of your work or your live performances are improvised, so you're absorbing all these styles. So the music that you're curating is probably like the purest form of music to come out of people. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, it's so natural, it's not, there's no set rules as such.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case when I'm playing a pure classical concert. But as I said, a lot of the music, over the last, I would say 5 years or so, it's an amalgamation of a lot of different styles now. So I'm incorporating those all into and the music I'm producing and making at the moment. So maybe the classical concerts would maybe fall under that bracket.
Yeah.
The music is taking the sort of forms and styles and trying to figure out, rather than figure out where do they naturally sit together, because there's always something which connects. Music, as you rightly said, music is a universal language. So it's never about making them to connect. It's they naturally, sound is one thing itself. Everything has 12 notes. So it's finding where different styles naturally sit together. There's work I've done when I've performed in Madrid with flamenco music, and there was some real natural elements which fitted so neatly with Indian classical music in terms of how the rhythms could be structured. I worked with sort of flamenco dancers there. Even elements of jazz music, I've incorporated Balkan voices in the styles in an album I did in 2016, 2015, I can't remember now, called Abarthan. And there I worked with an amazing violinist from the BBC Symphony Orchestra. And we never thought about how do we make it fit. We sat in a room, when it was allowed in those times, and the music naturally sort of flowed.
Yeah, it's fantastic because if only humans were a lot more like music, whereas you work together to create something beautiful. At the moment in the world, we seem to be clashing. We seem to be playing off notes with each other. There's no cohesion, is there? And I think with music, you're playing with flamenco dancers and you're different styles, but you're coming together to create something. And it's a great. I'm sure it's a great feeling when it does connect, and your styles do merge together. And you've got a connection, haven't you? You might not even speak the same language.
Yeah, and you literally lose track of time, and certainly until you get really hungry, like actually it must be time for dinner, you realize the whole day is gone, and you're driven into a whole new world.
I think there's a term for that. In scientists call it when you're in flow state, when you're doing a certain activity which you enjoy. You are kind of you're transfixed on a project or some kind of work that you're doing, that you literally lose track of time. It's like you're hypnotized.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and there's actually, look it up, people watching, Google it. It's called flow state, right? And people find it in certain things, activities that they do, and writers find it sometimes when they're in a flow state and the words are coming down nicely on the screen and the chapters are flying away. They think, oh my God, it's like 4 hours, but the next day they might struggle to do half an hour, you know.
Yeah, maybe what they call writer's block.
Writer's block, yeah. And but so you must have done immense practice. This must be a daily activity for you growing up.
Yeah, growing up, that's all I did, was practice and practice. I don't recall doing anything else.
Wow. Did you get a period when you was like, 13, 14? As you get a bit older, you get into teenager, you think, oh, I can't be bothered doing this. This is like, it's hard work, isn't it? Did you ever get to that?
It was the only thing I wanted to do, and by that point, I think I was really exploring the possibilities, and I started to realize actually where the potential of possibilities would be. And when it opened my eyes as such, and that's where it really got exciting, because there were so many avenues in terms of whether I wanted to begin to produce and start making music, which I did, and playing the piano, and there was just so much on offer, and really getting, I'd use the word hypnotized, as you said, by the music, and discovering the amount of artists, the talents out there, and learning about the journeys that they've individually been through as well. I think that influx altogether, I was more overwhelmed.
Yeah. You was hooked from an early age, right? And it's not let go of you since. And
no.
Yeah. But obviously, you studied as well. I mean, am I right? You're trained economist as well.
By trade,
yeah, by trade. So yeah, I mean, not the easiest part. It takes a lot of hard work and studying to become one. So you was balancing both things as well, So
yeah, music's a ever. I think you always find something new. You can never stop discovering. The more you dive into the ocean, the deeper you realize the ocean of music is, and that really it's a very humbling experience, because you realize there's so much more to learn.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example, really, because if for yourself, if you're learning an instrument or any kind of music, I think we, as people, as humans, we want kind of an end. We do a course, don't we? We start a course, complete the course, and we've done it, right? But with music, you're literally never going to finish, are you?
Yeah, there's no qualification.
There's no end. There's never no end.
Yeah, there's no end to music, and that's the beauty, because you could play one piece at a number of points across your life, and you will always play it differently. You will never play the same piece in the same way. Once you performed it, it will never sound the same if you perform it again. And it has the energy to evoke a feeling and a discovery, and you can always find something new. So a piece is never finished as well. So when you think, and when I'm sure when you listen to bands over and over again, you want to hear them play that song, because you will always hear something different or find something different. And that's the beauty of live music, is that it doesn't matter how many times a person sings their record or performs their record, there's always going to be something new.
Yeah,
and Is their
even
voice aging?
yeah. I mean, even with bands, you're right, because when you see them perform
Which
live,
has a beauty of its own as well.
yeah, sorry.
Which has a beauty of its own as well.
Yeah, exactly. And if you realize some bands, they rarely play their own songs live exactly how they are on the albums. They kind of change it around sometimes. They've got that innate, they want to change things. They want to improvise slightly, change it for an audience, feed of the vibe of the audience, you know. I think it's part of them as well, you know. But I know you've use music for other things now as well, you know, and other projects that you're doing. I know you've done a TED talk, which is fantastic, you know. So for people that, I might link the TED talk, you know, to this interview as well, so people can check that out as well.
Sure.
But for people listening and watching, you know, kind of, what does it encapsulate, your TED talk?
So it was a TEDx talk. The talk, so I wanted to achieve two things. One, it was talking about the future of music.
Yeah.
And the future of music being that the style of music that I'm performing is not something, it's something which I'm still learning where the future of it goes. So I was firstly explaining what the differences would be between the conventional piano and the concept of bending the notes. So I partnered with a fantastic company I've been working with over the years called Roley, and they've produced a instrument called a C-board, and that C-board allows you to press in. It's like a keyboard, but it's a rubber-esque material, and it allows you to sort of bend between the notes while you play it. So what I did, I used that as an example to show actually what the music in me is sounding like, and I wanted to explain what the thought process of going through music was like, which is what the TEDx talk is about.
Yeah, wow. I mean, so there's an amazing mind in there, Rekesh, in your head. There seems to be a lot going on musically. You know, you seem to be kind of on a journey to trying to find something. There's some kind of, you know, both musically and within yourself. You know, you're trying to explore avenues of music and how far it can take you. When even your TEDx talk is literally about that. You know.
Yeah.
where music's going to take you, you know. But I find a real human connection with your ethos on music. I relate to it a lot, and although I don't play the keyboard, the piano or the keyboards, I don't obviously sing classical music, and but I kind of find a human connection with it.
I would agree. Yeah, I think music has to be human.
Yeah. I mean, unless AI becomes, you know, we've got some AI robots actually making music.
Well,
right?
you know, there's some amazing technology, and technology is an enabler, but it won't ever replace the human elements of playing the instrument or music itself. And you can always feel the difference between something that's artificially processed musically and something where it's been played more authentically.
Yeah.
And even though that authentic recording might sound a bit more rustic, it evokes a feeling which is much more human, and it's something where you can connect much sort of greater to. And I feel that always is more pleasing. Whereas I feel, sorry.
I think no. I think so, because I think it's that element where the AI robots will they kind of need to be programmed to go to certain parameters, right? And whereas you're not, there's something else guiding you, you know. Whereas the AI robot's been programmed to hit certain parameters, so improvisation will be it will be programmed to an extent where you're not, like you said, your every concert, if you do it a pure Indian classical concert, will be different from one to the next.
Yeah.
You know, so it's all right, Rekesh. You're not going to be replaced by AI robots. I know you've also done some projects which are close to your heart as well, and are you currently doing one at the moment? Are you?
Yeah, that's right. So I'm releasing a project which is coming out on World Mental Health Day
Yeah.
to raise awareness of mental health. So during lockdown and COVID, I always wanted to. I set out initially, not to do live stream, concerts, and I, I was very conscious about choosing the work I would take, and I wanted to focus my energies on doing something for a cause, because I feel music and art is something which everybody can relate to,
Mm.
and it can always help enable conversations. So I've been working with a fantastic charity in conjunction with them. They're called the British Asian Trust, who do amazing work in South Asia. And I read a case study on their website, and I was very touched by it. And it's called Neelam Story, which is the name of the track itself. And it tells a story of somebody who was affected by mental health issues. So I wanted to tell that story through music and dance, with a real call to action at the end of the video, where people who maybe have been experiencing issues, where they can get help.
Mm. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. Since COVID, I think it's brought to the forefront, mental health, and like you said, you didn't really want to be live streaming music, and I mean, I don't do live streaming interviews. I know a lot of people do. It's not. So, with your project, what do you hope to achieve? Is it just awareness that you're trying to get out there
Yeah,
for people?
so there's two aims. One is that I want to raise awareness of mental health, especially amongst the South Asian communities, where
Yeah.
there's a particular stigma attached to mental health, and I want to try and eradicate that, either at scale, or even if the video resonates with one person, that's my job done.
Yeah.
Because if it allows them to open up and get the professional help they may need, it could change somebody's life.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So one is raising awareness of that, and secondly, with the work the British Asian Trust do, they have a specific COVID-19 emergency appeal, so it's to draw traction to that as well. But overarching all of that, it's to enable people to feel comfortable having conversations, and I feel art is an enabler. People can always resonate or connect with art, and there's a fantastic dancer who's featured in the film itself. She's the BBC Young Dancer of the Year, and she very brilliantly tells the expressions and portrays mental health matters through very artistic expressions, which I feel people will be able to, resonate and understand what they are. I think sometimes if you tell, sometimes messages are hard to reach directly, and I feel because art has no language, it can help those conversations.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, a really worthy cause. And so the video is it out now, or is it coming out?
So it releases on World Mental Health Day. So if you follow and those watching follow my Instagram, I'm actually telling the story of Neelam through my Instagram account, through pictures, etc. So
Yeah. What's your handle for people?
it's very simply my name, so Instagram/Rekesh Chauhan, and that's the Rekesh with an E, so Rekesh Chauhan.
Yeah. But so people listening, and watching, go follow. It's a super important subject, and I absolutely agree with you. Music and art, it's so important for mental health. I mean, they treat depression with art, don't they?
Music is medicine.
Yeah, so they actually literally treat people with depression with art. So music, and music can put you in a mood, can't it? You know that better than me.
You know what you want to listen to, and what mood something you listen to will put you in.
Yeah, and it's amazing because you can listen to a certain song and it invokes a memory. It's like a little time machine, right? And it reminds you of your youth. You know, it could be a love song when it was another girl that dumped me. It could be a successful day when I got my first job, or something on the radio. It's magic. Music is magic. It's quite literally magic, you know. Rakesh, you know what? I've really enjoyed talking to you. I've learned so much, and no, honestly, I've got a real appreciation for what you do. A lot deeper appreciation for what you do, because I see your posts, and I see you performing with some fantastic people like Fateh Ali Khan, and I've seen pictures with you, some other fantastic singers, you know. So, but I think the appreciation for what you're actually doing and your art, it's there, man, and I appreciate it. I just want you to know I appreciate it, and I like it, you know.
That means a lot coming from a listener like you.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. And so your future plans? I know you've got, you know, this video coming out for World Mental Health Day. What about longer term?
So longer term, there's been a whole lot of projects I've worked on. So in fact, there's been 2 releases which I've just put out. So one was with a fantastic violinist, which is on my YouTube channel now. There was another one with a fantastic ghazal singer. So there've been, this would be the 3rd release within, I guess, the last 5 weeks. So it's been a very intense period of putting out music. There's also been a lot of I think a lot of people have asked me to produce music which amalgamates those different styles, because maybe you know, they want to hear that style of Indian raw Indian sounds fused with Western soundscapes. So there's a lot more of those works which are going on. I've been asked to do a couple of theatre productions. Obviously, given the current situation, we're assessing what's going on there. And then there's a whole stream of live concerts and collaborations. So it's jam-packed.
You're a busy future. So you've had a very productive COVID-19. You know, you've got a lot done, you know, in 5 weeks. A lot of releases and So look, Rakesh, look, we're coming towards the end. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed it. But before you go, just one, it's on my mind. Just remind people where your YouTube channel sits. Is it under your name as well on YouTube?
Absolutely, yep. So my social handles, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, is at Rekesh Chauhan.
Yeah, I'll link all of them anyway on the show notes, and people can definitely please go check it out, and especially support, you know, the video on World Mental Health Day. Please share it. That's all that people have to do. Share it on the timelines and get the exposure out, because it's an important subject, and it's a way of helping people. You know, all you have to do is share.
It's a cause within this time that deserves attention.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and people at home, they share all sorts of nonsense, don't they? All sorts of fake news. Might as well do something good with your power that you have in your hands to share things and do some good. So I love it. I'll definitely be sharing it. And it's been definitely been a great pleasure chatting to you. And before you go, any last parting words to people listening and watching? Any wise words, Rakesh? You seem like a very wise, calm, measured human being. I like it. You've calmed me down. I was kind of frazzled when I came. Remember, I said to you, look, my hair's all over the place. I'm running late, but you've kind of chilled me out for the evening. I love it.
Yeah, in terms of the last words, you know, I would just urge everybody to do go and, as you said, rightly share and watch the videos with family and friends. Anybody it can help. You know, the cause deserves a lot of attention, and during this time of COVID, you know, I hope it can help, and I hope people resonate. And please message me and, you know, reach out and tell me what you think of both the music and video. It's an absolutely fantastic team I've been very privileged to have worked with, and I hope everybody enjoys it.
Well, Rakesh, look, thank you for coming on the SMT. It's been a real pleasure, and time flew by, didn't it? We was in a trance, almost like we was making some kind of music together. I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of the music making process.
And this was purely improvised, our conversation. I want to tell everyone listening, there was no rules, right? So thank you for coming on.
It was a purely Indian classical conversation.
It was. But thank you, my friend. All right, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Speak soon. Okay, bye.